I'm curious about part-time employees, because many of our employees work 2 and 3 jobs. So is it defined, I haven't been able to see it, which employer is going to be responsible for offering the health insurance? Or are all 2 or 3 of them, would they all have to pay a penalty if they're not offering the insurance?
Yep, good question.
That's a critical question.
Well, and I'm going to review this because that came up in a couple of the town halls, and it come up before. I was talking with the long-term care industry and the agriculture industry that, again, have lots of employees, but again, fairly low margins. And my understanding, the way the House bill has been written, is that all employers are responsible for providing a health plan and or paying a penalty. All employees are responsible for either accepting that or saying, I don't want that insurance plan. When they do that, 2 things happen. One, they have the ability to go into the exchange and go on the private, or if a public option survives, doesn't look like that's going to happen, but they could either get public or private insurance through this exchange, but they are no longer eligible for any of the subsidies. Okay, they do not get the subsidies. And what does that mean? That means it's probably not to their advantage to seek insurance on the private market because they have to foot the whole cost. Okay, so the subsidies are for people who are not employed, basically. What about the employer? Are you penalized if your employee says they don't want it? I researched that pretty thoroughly throughout the course of the House discussion. The answer was no, you are not penalized. As long as you've gone ahead and offered a decent plan that is under their maximums. You can't offer a plan that would be over, what, 5,000 or 10,000 per family, whatever the numbers are right now. But as long as your plan did not constitute out-of-pocket costs for the employee above those numbers, and they decided no, there's no penalty for you. Okay, that's a reduction in your cost, if you will, going forward. Now, we will want to stay on top of that because I also found, as I discussed this with some of the staff members, that the committee staff all agreed with that interpretation. Some of the committee members agreed with that interpretation, members of Congress. The committee staff, who unfortunately write all this stuff, were not so obliging. And so I pushed the discussion upstairs to senior staff and budget people and legal people that are reading the language. And they said, no, there is no penalty for the employer. However, we'll want to watch and make sure that the language, however it's written, is absolutely crystal clear. There is no penalty for the employer. So that's what I know so far. We'll keep on that. And if you can keep, you have resources too, so if you can keep an eye on that also, that would be helpful for me.
Do you support the one free choice amendment that got in the Senate version?
I haven't seen that. No, actually, I'm slogging through the bill at this point.
When you talk about employer penalties and that kind of stuff, that's basically what that was guaranteeing. So if they employ someone who's up to 400% of the federal poverty level, and that person would prefer to go to the exchange, they'll get a voucher for the amount their employer was going to pay towards theirs, and there would be no penalty towards the employer if they went ahead and went to the exchange.
Right. No, that's fine. That's yes to do. And then the other piece of your question I didn't answer was, well, which employer are we talking about? And the answer is, it's, as I understood it, the employee gets to choose, so to speak. And so my original concern was, well, geez, if the employee chooses and I'm just a little Clackamas County Vet Clinic, my health plan is not going to be nearly as good as a bigger business, quite honestly, at least I would assume not, then would I have all these penalties? And that's why I asked the question. I had some self-interest in that. The answer was no. But your plan would still be viable and you still have an opportunity.
But if all 3 employers were opting to pay the penalty as opposed to offer the insurance, then all 3 employers are going to pay the government.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, let's check that out. That I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
That's a good point. That's a nuance I didn't think of. Good.
Okay, thank you.